the smell of point spreads in the morning. You know that we love it. A big weekend on tap here. Welcome to another edition of the Morning Briefing, a degenerate Friday edition of the Morning Briefing. I'm Jeff DeForest, along with Mike Lubitz here on NoFilter.net, Caffeine TV. Happy to have you guys along for the ride, which has been a bit of a funeral procession from the standpoint of us giving out selections here on the program. And we don't like to do that. We don't want to bury our adoring public. You guys are nice enough, kind enough to tune in and give us a little bit of your attention and some of your valuable time. And what do we do for you? We bury you with selections that are so bad, so outrageous, that stink. They leave a stench hovering over the entire state of Florida. As Jacksonville goes down to San Francisco last week, we recommend wholeheartedly and boldly, well, you know what? They're getting 3 at home. This Trevor Lawrence is due for a breakout game. San Francisco is on the slide. We used every ounce of logic that made perfect sense to us. And of course, it was convoluted logic. But last night, Lubie, you did it right at the end of the show here on the morning briefing. I put you on the spot. I said, who do you like in the ball game between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Baltimore Ravens? A key game. Cincinnati fighting for, I mean, is it fair to say this almost every week now in the NFL? Well, they're fighting for their playoff lives. Yeah. Not sure how much life they have left. I think they're very much on life support at this point. You could see the respirator going in there with Joe Burrow and company as they lost that ball game to the Baltimore Ravens and did it by a couple of touchdowns. So not only did we have the right team, but we easily covered the point spread there of 3 and a hook. Now, in that game, one of our friends who bet substantially, you know, the great Sheldon G out of Las Vegas, Nevada, my friend. And we live vicariously through him because we don't have this kind of bread. And if you did have this kind of money, would you be wagering it as liberally as some people do? We had a guy in Florida the other day that they just started sports wagering or legalized sports wagering for the second time. It's only a matter of time before some judge issues an injunction. The state Supreme Court says, oh, no. Like Richard Steele, just step in and stop it. Because anything good in the state of Florida, it can't be sustained. That's just in direct contrast to any of the bylaws that govern the state. And, of course, the people that govern the state have to come into high question, do they not? What do we have? We have some trifecta here, huh? 2 senators. One's a criminal, Rick Scott. The other one, a complete buffoon, Marco Rubio, who, when asked after the Stoneman Douglas thing, hey, would you continue to take money from these gun interests? And he said, And then our governor, Ron DeSantis, who made this clandestine deal with the Seminole tribe of Florida, which is running most of the gaming here and been a dominant force in that regard for a long time, and seemed to be reasonable people. But somehow he came out of a gas station a couple of blocks from the Hard Rock Hotel with an attaché full of cash attached to his wrist by handcuffs. And as if he was some Russian rabbi with a suitcase full of diamonds, went crawling back to Tallahassee and said, guess what? They're going to be the only ones that have this. So we don't know what's been going on with that for a long, long time. But now that it's sort of back in action, whatever temporary basis or permanent basis it may be, some guy waltzed into the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Broward County, Florida, and plunked down $500,000, Lubie, on a 14 parlay, only to have it hit.
Nice.
And have the Seminole tribe as one of the early stages of sports wagering hand over a $5 million payoff. The 14 parlay at 10 to 1.
Holy crap.
And the guy cashes for $5 million. Now, a fool and his money are soon separated. And if you're going to be betting like that, it seems a little bit insane. But at least you want to know that the games are on the level and that the information that you are getting prior to the game starting is somewhat accurate, somewhat within the realm of truth. And that was our friend Sheldon's issue with the game last night. As you saw Joe Burrow, who's had a continued struggle with a calf injury since the preseason. It looked like he had overcome it.
Yeah, it looked like he was playing
Looks
better.
like it's kind of, I mean, he was doing fine, but maybe it reared its ugly head once again, got a little bit dicey. You know how these things go, Lubie, right? Just as you think, oh, yeah, that hammy's okay. You go out, you play a little basketball, and it happens again. So not listed on the injury report was Joe Burrow. The injury report, I think, is only issued for gamblers. Do you think the coaches really need the assistance of the injury report? Is Bill Belichick going, hey, look at that. The Jets have listed so-and-so as being questionable.
I mean, they like knowing who's healthy and who's injured, but they also know it's bullshit. So that's the thing. It's
Yes,
like
because
they
for the
cannot
most
trust.
part, in the NFL, unless you're listed as deceased,
Yep.
that guy is probably going to play. Doubtful, he's playing. Questionable, he's playing. Deceased, there's a half a shot. Well, you can count on him taking at least a couple of snaps in the ball game. He's been dead for 2 weeks. In fact, the autopsy is scheduled right after the game. No problem. That's the other thing that gets me about dead guys is how the NBA loves to trade for deceased players who have a contract expiring because they're still getting paid $60 million 6 years after their passing. I think Elgin Baylor's still got a live contract. Somebody might want to trade for that. Anyway, Burrow is nowhere to be seen on the injury report. Now, Tom Brady, for 20 years, even though he played every game, played every down, was
Yeah,
available for every snap,
yep.
was on the injury report every week. So, how much
Yes.
attention would you pay to that, except for the fact that lots of money is exchanging hands now on these ball games? And there was no mention whatsoever of Burrow being hurt. So, does our buddy have a legitimate beef? I think he had 20 dimes riding on this ball game,
Oh
which
Jesus.
was a minor play for him. This is a guy that bet $500,000 on the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl last year. And so he's a serious bettor. And there would be some concerns that you were getting falsified information. It's almost as if you went down on the sideline to Carissa Thompson and said,
There you go.
"Hey, what's the status of Burrow's calf?" And she said, "Well, I'll tell you what, it doesn't look so good for him. There's a pretty good chance they carry him off the field in a body bag because I just talked to the coach, and of course, the coach had been suspended from the game and ejected from the game. Wasn't even on the sidelines. But what did you make of that story, Lubie? Do you find it incredible, which would be a takeoff on the word credible and credibility being in question? How do you take somebody seriously when they're issuing reports and proclamations about what's going on in a particular sport? In this case, Carissa Thompson, now with Fox and has been for 10 years. She started out on ESPN. She's had a variety of other jobs. Extremely attractive woman. There's no problem. Anytime they cut away to a shot of her, you're thinking, man, that is one fuck of a babe. I didn't mean to imply that, there
She's
was
a good-looking
anything
woman.
indecent about it, but one hell of a
She's
babe.
good
Let's
looking.
put it that way.
Yes, she's good looking.
All right, but when she tells you straight up, hey, you know what? When they came to me, I just made the shit up. Was that like as bad as me making up those traffic reports when I was working on FM radio 40 years ago?
Well, you
And
were
we
going
didn't
off.
have all of the information available to us where you get the traffic information right there on your phone. Somebody starts screaming, "There's a car on the side of the road 12 miles ahead in Yeehaw Junction. Proceed with caution." We used to have to make that stuff up. What do you think? I mean, the next time you see a sideline reporter, a babe on the sidelines, are you going to take whatever that person has to say with any level of credibility?
Well, the reality is, outside of Visser, Mom, I like Michelle Tafoya. Lisa Salter's okay. Tracy Wolfson's pretty solid. I never gave a shit about any of them. I guess Andrea Kramer's okay, but like I never cared about any of it anyways. I barely paid attention anyways because like we joke, the coaches don't want to be there, and the
They,
questions
they
they
don't
ask,
say anything. It's an obligation.
and the questions they ask are stupid for the most part. Like I'll be brutally honest, whether it's women or men, because men do it too. The guy Evan Washburn, like there's guys. I never like any of it. I think it's all dumb. But I also thought it was true. Like why lie? Like what else are you
Yeah.
doing? Your job is to just
Just
you
say
talk
the
to
coach
enough
blew me
people.
off.
Yeah, like well, you can come up with something. Like you're there all week getting stories, so just
Yes.
have shit in your head. Be ready. I wouldn't even dawn on me to lie. Like why? Like what do you?
Why would you
lie?
fabricate one of those inconsequential reports?
Like, are they like, well, you're not giving us good enough shit. We need better shit. Like, come on, she's great looking. That's why she's there. She's not there because she's a reporter.
Well, they only ran the ball for 2 yards in the first half. So Brian Kelly told me they're going to have to run the ball better in the second half. Back up to you, Jim.
I just love that she
It's
said it
not like
it was
you're
a
getting any
joke
great insight into it.
in some stupid, they do these columns about people, the sit downs. And she said it in passing, thinking it wasn't a big deal because I guess she assumed everyone does it. And she's realizing, no one does it. Her and Aaron, well, the other one. And I'm like, I really can't
Aaron
say
Andrews, big time sideline reporter, made
but
her
she
launched her
sucks too.
career.
She sucks.
Yes.
So what's great is and it makes me feel better about assuming she sucks. She sucks because she supposedly admitted to doing it tons of times as well. Makes perfect sense. My question is, how do you have either of them work ever again? Both have big time jobs right now. Like, how can you work? Like, that's what you're doing is to tell the truth. Like, if you're openly lying, like, what are you there for?
You're just making shit up on the sidelines, and what would be a startup job. Jim Lampley started out as a sideline reporter. Always thought he was a bit of a douchebag when he was a sideline reporter, and you're thinking, why are they putting this guy in this worthless position Yet he managed to evolve and have a very distinguished career, mostly with HBO as a boxing announcer, but very articulate guy. Wasn't my favorite boxing announcer, but better than some that you might incur on TV and, have a chance at that Mauro Ranallo guy, very intelligent guy, but does he ever stop screaming
No,
about, boy, what a fight it is?
no,
They had a fight last night that was so boring on ESPN. I felt bad for my buddy Brad Jacobs, the CEO of Top Rank Boxing, Shaker Stevenson. Real good fighter. And he was going against a guy named De Santos. For some reason, it was a Thursday night title fight on ESPN, 12-round title fight for the WBC Lightweight Championship of the World. It set a record for futility, Lubie. The lowest number of punches ever landed by anybody in a 12-round bout.
oh God.
I've known these guys from CompuBox. I happened to be with a fledgling company when they unfortunately were under the same umbrella. They had a very credible thing going there. Although I don't know that keeping boxing statistics really has all that much meaning because, maybe you might be able to make the equation or the decision, the conclusion that somebody got robbed when they landed 200 more punches than the other guy but didn't get the decision. Holy Jimmy Young, what are we talking about here? When Young fought Muhammad Ali, and Ali never threw a punch in the entire fight, still got the win. That was a disgrace. All right, so maybe CompuBox gives you some kind of definition on that, where they are counting the punches. But for my money, boxing statistics went out the window when, one guy could land 100 punches, but if the one punch that is landed by the opponent, who's been inactive, puts the guy into the third row, like he was Joe Frazier against George Foreman in Kingston, Jamaica, then what good are all of these stats? Happens all the time in football, right? Where one team outgains the other team by 300 yards, but loses the ball game.
Yeah.
And loses to the point spread. But that was particular ugliness going on last night. A friend of ours, and we have to mention this guy that we call the professor, who gave us some selections. And we probably should review a couple of those here before we make our exit on the morning briefing. Professor, a very astute college football handicapper. He also was mystified by the spread, Louisville versus the University of Miami. University of Miami has had a dreadful season by any standard and has to have serious questions about the wisdom of the board of directors according Mario Cristobal an $80 million 10-year deal. They're not Texas A&M, Lubie. They can't afford to just buy the guy out. And he also brought up an interesting question. If you received $75 million in a contractual buyout, would you ever work again? I mean, do you surface at like FIU if you're Jimbo Fisher?
Probably not as a coach. Like, I would do this because this is fun. Like, I wouldn't. That's one of the most demanding jobs ever. Even if you don't give a shit, you'll give a shit because you're doing the job. Yeah, no, I would never coaching again. Are you kidding me? The stress those guys are under? Fuck that.
Yeah, Cristobal, it's been an absolute disaster so far, in my opinion. At the University of Miami, as evidenced, I mean, the epitome of that was that Georgia Tech game, where you have the game won and you still managed to lose it. It's not even like that. The other team came up with some miraculous play. They did, I guess, at the end of the ball game, which was another just insult. That was literally the old cliche, adding insult to injury. But how on earth you ended up fumbling the ball in that spot? Holy Joe Pisarcik, what are we talking about there? There's Herm Edwards running down the field. Unreal to lose that game. But Louisville is only laying 1 point now to the University of Miami. They're on the road. The stats might be askew, as a professor pointed out to us, because maybe the reason that they score far more points at home and yield far more points on the road, double digits in both categories, 15 more points they score at home, they give up 11 more on the road. But was thrown out of sync, and the stat may not be appropriate because, they were putting up 80 on some of these bottom-level MAC conference teams that they played at home in the early portion of the season. But how that's a 1 point game? You were saying there were injuries, Lubie?
No, well, the professor was telling me they've had issues, but I guess that isn't the case with it. I don't know why. Even if there's injuries, Louisville's vastly better than Miami. I don't know. Maybe Miami's game at home, even though
Miami's coming back to they're coming back to Tyler Van Dyke at quarterback, who was benched in favor of a guy that they didn't think was even close to being ready to play.
He's not healthy, and he's a turnover machine.
Yeah, Emery Williams, who got hurt last week, true freshman. What was in there? All right, so he liked Louisville, loved them actually.
Yes.
Tulane, Kansas State over Kansas. I didn't realize this, that Kansas State has won 9 of the last 10.
Yeah, they're good.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Against Kansas, and Kansas has all kinds of problems. They're down to a third-string quarterback.
Yep.
So just a couple of selections for you here, and everybody loves UCLA this week. UCLA over
All of
USC,
our
getting
handicappers.
getting 6 and a hook. Every single handicap.
Well, they have a good defense, and their offense is competent. USC, their offense is now shaky. Caleb Williams is crying after games, and their defense is a sieve. It may be the worst in the country.
Yeah. But the professor brought up a very interesting point, and that is that the Formula One race in Las Vegas is one of the dumbest ideas that has ever been foisted upon the American public to buy into. Formula One racing sucks. Same guy wins every week.
Yes, he's won 10 in a row. 10 in a row.
Max Verstappen. 10 straight races this guy has won. And just to show you how dumb the sport is, he pointed out that they had to blow off the practice run because the cars wouldn't start in the cold of Las Vegas. That it was like 40 degrees. They couldn't get the engine started. And I'm thinking, what are they running there? The Chevy Vega, the Pinto, the Gremlin, the Omni? I had a Chevy Vega. It wouldn't start up under any circumstances because all of the oil, you would look down and all of the oil was underneath the car there. And it wasn't surprising. I mean, had Brett Favre been driving a Chevy Vega, you would have seen Rachel Nichols underneath the car too, because she was always forced to be hiding out outside of his house to see if he was actually going to make a comeback. All right, we have to run. It's been a lot of fun being with you. Thanks so much for tuning in to the morning briefing. Good luck with all the replays over the weekend. The UCLA game was universal, my friend. UCLA plus 6.5. Holy Chip Kelly. He's going to get off the schneid here and maybe not win the game outright, but possible sniff on the money line, I would think. Getting 6.5. UCLA, USC's season is in a shambles, and it's so amazing to think that Lincoln Riley didn't realize that there were two aspects of this game. And, that defense was one of them. Unless you want to count special teams. I don't even know if you have to factor that into the equation because USC's defense is one that I don't know that I've ever seen anything like it, where, I mean, every play works. Every single play works, including the Statue of Liberty. The other thing, too, the Jets are in action over the weekend, and that's not the biggest game, obviously. There's the Chiefs and the Eagles. The Jets are getting 7 points from the Buffalo Bills. You know what the Jets' last touchdown was? Matt Snell, Super Bowl III. Got that little screen pass from Joe Willie and went right into the end zone. Otherwise, they haven't scored since. All right, we have to run. Thanks so much for being with us. For Mike Lubie Lubitz, I'm Jeff DeForest. Thanks for tuning in to the morning briefing here on NoFilter.net.